Welcome to the Soulful Prosperity Podcast, hosted by me, Jen Marr, Soulful Prosperity Coach. This podcast will be your sanctuary for deep, transformative conversations, practical tools, and connections with inspiring individuals. Together, we're going to explore philosophies and strategies that propel us forward and provide the support needed to uplift us during challenging times and on our mission for growth. We want to cultivate a life brimming with health, love, prosperity, and joy. Soulful prosperity is not just about wealth. It's about crafting a life worth living. So whether you're seeking a spark of motivation, a moment of reflection, or a community that understands the depth of your aspirations, you're in the right place. Thank you for joining. Now let's get to our show. Welcome back, everyone, to Soulful Prosperity. Today, I'm honored to sit down with one of my favorite clients, David Vogel. He's a visionary storyteller who believes that when told well, a story can do far more than inspire. It can build trust, preserve legacy, close deals, and create lasting transformation. With a 20-year background in feature films and national commercials, David has taken his mastery of narrative and applied it to a business in a profoundly human way. He is the founder of 3 unique ventures: Remote Video Testimonials, Heirloom Family Documentaries, and Videos. By the way, I'm a client of his as well. All 3 of these missions are rooted in the same core function: to capture real human stories and turn them into strategic assets and emotional assets. David is helping financial advisors grow with SEC compliant video testimonials, supporting families in preserving their history for future generations, and empowering businesses to elevate their client experiences through story, all through a fully remote, done for you video process. In our conversation, we're going to explore trust, legacy, and visibility, which is what all of his businesses revolve around, and also how storytelling, when done with clarity and integrity, becomes a powerful tool for growth in both business and life. You're going to see David's depth, creativity, and soul-centered approach to service will leave you reflecting on the stories that you're telling, and better yet, the ones you have yet to share. Help me welcome my friend, David Vogel. Yay!
Yay!
How'd I do?
Happy
How was
to
your
be
intro?
here. That was great. I want to
Good.
meet that person.
Yeah, it's
He
fun.
sounds awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Everybody says that, but it really is a combination of your stuff, from here and there, throw it in Chat GPT with a little of my own spin, and it comes out so good. But you're amazing in life and also in a bio.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So the show is Soulful Prosperity, and we welcome people to come here and share their journey, right, to success, where it started, where it went, challenges, triumphs, struggles, and where you want to go next, what you think is important for anybody out there listening who may be struggling with either starting a business, growing a business, or maintaining a business, and balancing. I don't like the word balancing, but everybody's trying to balance all of it, when being an entrepreneur. So start wherever you feel comfortable.
Wow, there's just so much to unpack, Jen.
Yeah.
Well, I think I'll focus just really on the entrepreneurial journey. My father was an entrepreneur by accident. He was in a job as an engineer and wanted to get he was already somewhat into management, but wanted to have part ownership in a business, and they didn't want to have at it. So he left and kind of was in transition to where does he go next? And suddenly people were asking him to help for help, and suddenly he had a business. And, as a child of an entrepreneur, I got to watch from the sidelines of seeing kind of the transformation for him in his life and what entrepreneurship gave him in terms of lifestyle, in terms of financial freedom, in terms of being your own boss. And he was really the kind of the roadmap that I used for my journey. And I saw what he did, and I knew I had a lot to offer the world, and I knew in kind of the 9 to 5 corporate job that I wasn't living the fullest version of myself. And the one thing if we're talking to people who are thinking of becoming an entrepreneur or starting an entrepreneurial journey, there was a lot of fear. I actually, the only way that I was actually able to like kind of pull off the band-aid, if you kind of know that analogy, was I just had to jump. I had to just go all in. I had probably for 4 or 5 years been toying with the idea of being an entrepreneur and trying to build a side hustle. And I never liked the original ideas, or I didn't think that they had the legs. There was a lot of self-doubt, and I was beating myself up quite a bit. And I had a young family, I had a house and a mortgage, and I wanted to be careful. Like, you want to be careful. Like, it's hard to be careful starting and being an entrepreneur. And I made all the classic. So I basically walked out of my job one day after 15 years of working in a company. The company went a direction I wasn't happy with, and I think I was about 45 at the time, and knew, like, you're running out of time, Dave. Granted, what was it, Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken? I think he started his business at the age of 65, if I'm not mistaken. But I wasn't, I realized that the clock was ticking, and I had to either do something or just suck it up and, be willing to live with not knowing what that would be like. And I'm so glad that I took that leap and I took that jump and I walked out of my job. I had some game plan, but that was, so that's my advice, at least early on, is you just gotta have to do it. Certainly, you want to make sure you have that income stream to support you. I could work freelance, so that was easy. And now that it's like 15 years later into that entrepreneurial journey, you talked about, I have 3 businesses now. I've had failures. But one of the things I wouldn't mind kind of talking about is that word failure, right? I had such negative connotations to that. Actually, failure. Actually, starting the entrepreneurial journey, I was depressed. I had to get therapy because, so like, when you start a business, guess what? The only one who can do the job is you. There's no one to hand it off to. Any of those things that you've been avoiding your whole life, your weaknesses, now, great, they're still a weakness, but you got to face them. And so, um, one of the greatest lessons I learned, that failure is a gift. It means that you're taking strides forward. Is if you're failing, it means you're finding all the things that don't work. Well, actually means you're getting closer to what will work. So that's kind of like the beginning of my journey. Was that? I mean, there's so much more to unpack. Where would you like me to go based on that?
Well, I'll talk about a couple of things that you said. Number one, I am so grateful to you for bringing up and being vulnerable and honest about that depression. I just was with a client today. She just had her launch, and she's in that space. She's really struggling, and so I don't know that I ever went through that part of the process. And that's the thing too. It's different for everybody. Everybody goes, so thank you so much, but for sharing that. But yeah, all of a sudden, and then also, it's like you're expecting, okay, I did it, I launched, I faced my fears, and like, ta-da! And it's not quite like that, right? It's not quite like that. And celebrating each and every, no matter how tiny, triumph, success. But yeah, fail forward. That's the only way to get forward. So I love
Yes.
that. I also just want to ask real quick, how do you think being the child of an entrepreneur, besides like it inspired you to be an entrepreneur, I have been reflecting very deeply lately about my children, because even though I was in real estate for 30 years, I've always been an entrepreneurial spirit. I've always been the trailblazer in the industry, always not just settling into a book of business. It just didn't excite me, and it seemed boring. So I was, launching commercial company, doing this, doing that. And, I definitely know it took away from my presence at times, which you know that I work very hard on now to be very present, no matter how productive I am. And that took a lot. And that's why I don't like the word balance. I think balance is bullshit. It's all about harmony, identifying what's your priorities. And even if you're over here being the workaholic, your family is not neglected and your health is not neglected and, all that. So just because you brought it up, like, how do you think that experience was for you?
Yeah, so, as it relates to family and kind of being the son of an entrepreneur, um, I love the example that I'm setting for my children now. I've always believed that you should do what you love. There's the saying, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. That's not really what it's about for me. We get one, we have one trip on, one ride, this thing called life. And why would you do something that you don't enjoy? And my whole life, I've done pivot after pivot after pivot. I mean, I used to be an engineer, um, and
I
that was
didn't know
not
that.
really, yeah. Well, my dad wanted me to be an engineer. I wanted to be a commercial photographer. You see all the photography equipment behind me. He thought that was a nice hobby, but not a career. I beg to differ. And he set me on a path, but I quickly course corrected that within. I think it was within 2 years. I left engineering and moved out to Hollywood and worked in special effects. So um, I really believe, and I encourage this in my own children, that you should do what you love. And if you're not loving what you're doing, then find something else that you love. And it's a journey, because you might think something that you want to do is what you love, and then you get into it and you realize, well, I don't like the hours, or I don't like how much I have to travel, or I don't like the people I have to work with, or
Mhm.
there's always going to be something, and then you pivot again and you keep like I never thought I would be having three businesses, that I'm shooting video remotely. I mean, I always had an interest in video and being creative and using technology, but I would have never imagined this. And I think the impact that it's had on my children, my son and guess when he was in college, he started his own entrepreneurial business. He was detailing cars,
Yeah.
and Morgan, who my daughter, she has a side hustle doing freelance graphic design, and I love that they've kind of seen that example in me and see it possibly for themselves. I have no idea whether they're going to take the entrepreneurial journey, um, but I think it's important to show your children or the people around you that pursue, if you do what you love and you provide something of value, then people will want what you do. And granted, the whole reason why I left my job 15 years ago was because I wanted to make a bigger difference in the world. I thought I was shortchanging the world.
Mm.
And when you think of what you want your legacy to be, it's not necessarily how much money you have. And granted, I wanted to pursue the entrepreneurial journey so that my children, so I had financial freedom, so my children could do and have what they want in life, and not let money be the thing that's stopping them from their greatness. And so that's why I
Mm.
took that path, and I want that for them. And um, I think also going back to doing something you love, people appreciate that. And if you can provide them with value, they're going to want what you do and want to be a part of it. And, I've seen the impact that I've had on other people's lives. And that, I think, at the end of the day, that's what it all comes down to. Like, if I can help someone on their journey, then I feel like
Yes,
I've done my calling, if you would.
absolutely. I love that. And so you huh, take the leap, rip the band-aid off, think you get over some fear, but then that fear kind of converts into depression. So how did you do it? How did you grow? How did you get past that?
Sure. So the depression happened pretty pretty early in the journey. I didn't know how to start a business, and my dad wasn't really a good mentor for me in that regard, because he just had a job and then went on his own doing exactly what he was doing for
Mm,
exactly the same people. So and he's a
different.
bright guy. So yeah, it was very different. I was going from editing TV commercials to creating videos for local businesses. Like, and I had a digital signage business originally. And I coming from an engineering background, I love the numbers and crunching it and projections. And I remember I got some. You got to get help. I don't mean mental help. Sure, you can get that as well, But one of the things I learned is you can't be successful if you try to do it on your own. You need support, whether it's your your family or your friends or your community or your religious, whatever your religious affiliation is. And I happen to hear an ad for SCORE, which is a free nonprofit that where retired executives mentor, entrepreneurs. And I
Yep.
got in there, and I'll never forget, one of my mentors said, David, look, how much time are you spending on sales? And I was like I couldn't deal with rejection. I was afraid of failure. But the reality is, if you're not selling and you're not doing it, guess what? You are failing, right? And he's like, listen, David, you've got to invert your model. 90% of your time has to be all about sales. And you can play with the numbers in the other 10%, but you've got to get your product out there. You've got to, and I learned later in my entrepreneurial journey more about, de-risking and, market research. I just had a plan. I was like, I know businesses could benefit from this idea, and I'm going to do it without actually asking them if they wanted it. And so that was a big mistake. Um, so it was bad. It was bad. I mean, I copied someone else's model and knew I could do it better. And I knew, digital signage it's everywhere. I mean, that was the first business called Signpost Digital, and I knew it
I
had a
remember
place.
that. I
I
remember
had
that.
I had digital signs in Pepinos and Grand Central Market, and I had a little local digital, advertising platform for local businesses, hyper local. But the fact of the matter was, everyone was looking at this screen, not my screens.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to sell, and there was so much. I mean, I'd love to go back, as I've talked to you, Jen, about Heirloom with where I'm going with it. I'd love to go back and meet that version of David Vogel 15 years ago, because I've come a long way. And so to come back, how did I get over the depression? Well, I went to a therapist who was useless, but I actually found his name is Steve Pavlina, and he just he was gave me some business advice, and some, a lot, there's, all that negative talk. Like, I mean, we all know that voice in our head, but I didn't know how to deal with it. And he taught me, how to, he was really just, I kept listening to his video blogs, and it really saved my life. I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for that content, I don't know where I would be today, because he really got me out of my own way, got me to let go of my bullshit, and remember why I was doing this in the first place, and just do what you got to do and learn what you need to learn. I did a lot of learning and got a lot of help, and I continue. As you know, I'm working with you. I'm continuing. I'm all about self-improvement. I'm always interested in improving myself 1% every day. And I knew that the depression was like just part of the journey. So deal with it, learn from it, and move forward. It's not going to be forever.
Yes. Yeah. Love that. And you probably help somebody tremendously today just by sharing it and talking about it, because there's so many different things that, happen on the journey of growth. So very impactful, very impactful. So one of the most important things for me in business is to have fun. So how do you do that? How do you have fun while building your business?
uh, I think for me, I mean, I'm always having fun. I mean, you know, I'll work 7 days a week because I enjoy it. Like, that's why I say do something you love, because, and that's the thing is, and maybe for your listeners, it's really important to have a really strong why that gets you out of bed, because if they're going to be bad days, and if you don't have a strong enough calling that's getting you out of bed, or getting you to turn off the TV, or putting an extra hour in the office, you're just not going to do it, and you're going to be
Mm,
resentful and angry, and that could also lead to depression as well, or just not the fulfillment of the realization of your dream. And so you have to have a big enough why. That's certainly important. Um, and I just love what I do. So every day is a joy. I don't have to manifest it, Jen, because
yeah.
it's who I am. I just love helping people, and I love learning, and every day I'm learning. being a better leader, being a better mentor to my team, and just, the problem solving. Like, I'm a perpetual creative problem solver, so to have this, the journey, it's not necessarily the destination, it's the journey getting there.
Mhm.
And so I'm on the journey. Hey, I'd like to get there, don't get me wrong, because I have more journeys to go. um, but yeah, I'm just grateful that I get to do this. I think, it comes to gratitude. You and I talk about gratitude a lot, and it's easy to bitch and moan,
Yeah.
but that doesn't get you anywhere. You got to have gratitude, for what, that I get to do this in a country where I can start a business of my own, that, I have the freedom of choice, and I have clean air and clean water, and, I have technology that I can work from my home. There's just so much to be, I have my health. There's just so much to be grateful for, that, like, I think when someone is not enjoying what they're doing, they're being selfish. Like, you are, the whole purpose of
Yes.
the entrepreneurial journey is the transformation of other people. Now, granted, I'll have transformation along the way, but I'm trying to create their transformation. So if you're not enjoying what you're doing, if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you're not fully committed to it, and serving others, then you're depriving others of what gift you have.
Wow. I just love so much what you said, the whole part that if you're not enjoying it, you're being selfish. And that is really impactful. I mean, this is one of the things that I go through with my clients, is helping them to get their why, to be even go beyond them, right? So it's not about you, because sometimes it's hard to perform just for you. And so when you can attach that why to the greater good, which you are doing so effortlessly, to the greater good, whether that's for the greater good of your community, the greater good of your clients, or the greater good of the world, or the greater good for businesses, whatever that is, but really tapping into that greater good. And I will also disagree with you that you're not manifesting fun. I call bullshit on that. Like, everything that you just said, the result of that is fun, right? That the result of that is what makes it fun. Everybody thinks manifestation is just like, oh, I just want to have fun in doing what I'm doing. It's not fun if you don't have a blueprint of where you want to go and how you're going to get there. It's not fun if you don't have clients. It's not fun, so you do all the things, and you almost sometimes to your own detriment, but you're a lot better, uh, where you can also relax now, which is good.
Mm.
But you are somebody who is always fastidious with your, like, this is what needs to be done, this is the actions, this is this, and how are we moving forward, and how are we growing. And quite frankly, that's where the fun comes from. The fun comes from the results, at least in my opinion.
True. And I think to that point is, and I think you shared it earlier, is celebrate the wins, even if they're little, right? Because it's so easy. You might have nine things that go great in a day, and you had one thing that went bad, and all you focus on is that one thing that went bad, and you forgot about the whole nine things that really went well. We are so mean to ourselves, and keeping that voice in check is really important.
Oh, I so agree. I so agree. So if you could say one thing to somebody out there who is maybe looking to transition, I love that, you transitioned at 45. Um, what piece of advice? What's that one piece of advice that you would absolutely want to make sure to get to everybody who's listening, who is considering making a transition into being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I have a friend who I met through business, who focuses on this, and I think the word is fear. We let fear run our lives. Imagine if there were no negative consequences for an idea or an action you wanted to take. Of course you would take it. And so many of us convince ourselves out of something because of fear. I started the entrepreneurial journey 4 or 5 years later than I intended, because of fear. And fear is in every aspect of our life, whether it's, you're afraid of a conversation with a family member, or you're afraid of, what people will think of whatever. And so this is not necessarily specific to business. This is literally about everything in your life. Don't let fear rule your life. You have to take control of your own fear. And
Have you
what
ever?
fear,
Oh, go ahead.
and one other thing I want to share, Jen, is
Yeah.
fear means it's something you should be doing. If you're afraid to do
Yes.
it, it's probably the one thing you should be doing. So if it's actually a good feedback mechanism for you. So if you're afraid, then go do it because you're going to see what's on the other side of that.
There's two acronyms, and I'm gonna curse. Surprise, surprise. One of them is fear, fuck everything and run. And the other one is face everything and rise. And I love that. I don't know who wrote them or where it came from, but it's the choice. It's one or the other. You can't stand still in fear. You're either like going, if you're not facing it, you are going backwards. You are running away from your own desires. And fear is part of that growth. And I think you also hit the nail on the head when you said the depression can, uh, or if you're not having fun, rather, it's because you're being selfish in a way. And we all think of selfish as like, I'm going to do this for me and I'm going to do that for me. But really, selfish is about just so worried about how things are going to impact you. And, a fear is actually a very selfish emotion when you allow it to take over and you allow it to take charge. So really great advice. And how did you face your fear?
Well, I've been a risk taker most of my life, calculated risk taker. I've bungee jumped and skydived and scuba diving and hang gliding. Um, I do like the adrenaline rush. I knew that what I was going to lose by giving into the fear was greater than what I would lose by facing the fear.
It always is. Love it.
So,
Yeah. I love that. Love that. Love that. And then you said something earlier about it's hard to be careful when being an entrepreneur. What do you mean by that?
so it's kind of like Murphy's Law. You can't control everything. You can control what you can control. Um, and what I was saying there is that there are some things that are out of your control, but you can set yourself up for success. I'm a big fan of de-risking in business. That's one of the greatest gifts I learned from Pam Hoisel from Entrepreneur Ready. Another piece of advice for anyone who's listening, who's thinking of starting a business is you shouldn't spend $1. Don't build a website, don't build a logo or business cards until you've de-risked your idea. You know what your business is, who's going to want it, what they're willing to pay for it, if there's a market for it, how you're going to build that business so that when you start on day one, um, you have a high likelihood of being successful. I mean, Vidiance, which I started 2 years ago, I launched that business in 60 days with confidence because I de-risked the idea and I was
Mm,
profitable from day one. And I didn't spend a dollar
yeah.
until I launched the business.
Yeah. Super
So
important.
I got it much better. I've gotten much better by being taught some of the basics of starting a business for success. Like you shouldn't be starting a business like going to Vegas and putting it on, 21 black or whatever color 21 is.
There is a tool that I shared with you recently that's an AI tool that is freaking amazing called Venturas. That literally you take your business idea in there and you put it in there and it does this deep research of what if there's competition and what the market could be, what the potentiality is, what the risks are, what your messaging should be, what it shouldn't be, like crazy. Takes probably what took you a long time to de-risk your original idea. I mean, the one thing about AI is a lot of people will go to that tool and just like download it. Oh, it says 80% good, and then not analyze and break it down. So it's not
Yep.
quite that simple, but the research is done for you. And then you still want to dive into that, but de-risking is easier now than ever. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I love that. I didn't have those tools. I mean, as you know, I'm a big supporter of AI. I've been
Hmm.
very heavily involved in it the last 2 years. I use it in my businesses. And you're right. There is so much that entrepreneurs can benefit from with using ChatGPT, using AI for whether it's de-risking or, I mean, I use it for literally everything.
Yeah,
Want to come
me
up with a new
too.
product, a new service, a new price point, evaluate my website. Like you literally can do anything and everything in there. But yeah, you do need to verify and do
Embed
some
it.
more, but
Yeah,
it oh my God,
it's incredible.
if I had that at the beginning, holy moly, wow,
Yeah,
things would be
yeah,
way different. Yeah,
yeah. Well, listen, I only launched mine 3 years ago, and I just went with my heart and soul. This is what I want to do. But
that's
I had
great.
a really good idea. I've been around coaching for a really long time, so I knew more than I give myself credit for. So, what's next for you?
What's next for me is, I've been a bit of a, I'm fairly controlling. I have a bit of a perfectionist um, makeup, which I'm moving away from. But I brought on a team of 7, so I'm moving away from that. My thing is delegation. For the past couple of years, I've been wanting to replace myself in the business so I can do other things. I really want to turn remote video testimonials into an ATM machine where it is not only fully operating without me, but it's growing without me. There's so much I want to do with heirloom, with legacy work. There are so many stories not being told, Jen. It's not just for people after retirement, it's for young people, it's for old people. I want to eliminate loneliness. I want to build an app that's going to help address that. Storytelling is so powerful and it can be insightful to ourselves, kind of like video journaling or audio journaling. But I'm so excited about, reaching out in those directions. I've got other business ideas. I'm continually coming up with ideas for businesses. So I just want to make them and launch them and get them running and move on to the next one. Then I would love to get to the point where I have the financial freedom that I can be an angel investor and help other
Mm,
entrepreneurs make their businesses be successful as well.
yes, yes. You know, I don't know if you know this, but you're gonna know it now. When you say heirloom videos, I just teared up. You can't see it without my high vibes hat on. I tear up because some people know and most people don't, but my mom has cognitive impairment going into Alzheimer's, but so right now she just loses her short-term memory. And she's recently been diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer and still doesn't have the full diagnosis. It's complicated. It's even more complicated because she forgets that she has cancer and kind of has to relive the trauma over and over. But we did that heirloom video just in the nick of time. And watching her watch those videos and go down, like it gives her so much joy and so much comfort. And watching it together with my family, you know, has helped everybody just understand her more. And it's giving her this, it's like a companionship. I mean, that's a
Mhm.
really weird word to say, but she feels like she's got her dad and her mom and her aunts and uncles and all these people. Like I can feel it when we're sitting and watching these together. It's made such an incredible impact for, I mean, and how crazy is the timing of of that we did that. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to tell anybody who's listening. So heirloom videos is basically, why don't you tell them what heirloom is, and then I'll tell you the benefit that I've really seen.
Yeah. And thanks for sharing that because I hadn't heard that story, Jen. And
Well, it's evolving
that's
every
a,
day.
yeah. Yeah. So, heirloom is where we preserve the life stories of our loved ones to ensure that not only future generations, your children, your grandchildren, generations that don't even exist now will know that loved one and their story, but that your existing generation, you, Jen, will benefit from those stories and it will open doors to conversations that you might not have otherwise and have a richer, deeper relationship with your mom while she's still here. So um, it's telling those life stories, that family history. You have to remember that every one of us, when we are the last of a generation, we are now the storyteller of our siblings, of our parents, of our grandparents, and even our great grandparents. They no longer have a voice. You are the voice of theirs. So it's really important that, and there's, I, I don't know what studies it was done or where it was done, but people who understand where they came from and their family history actually are more, um, use the word balanced before. I don't know if that's really the appropriate word to use here, but are more at peace with themselves, I guess,
Yes.
by
Yeah.
knowing their ancestors. And so I think this work is so important. And I started it because, I interviewed my dad 6 years ago. I wanted to have his stories, and the experience was so transformational for me and my brothers that I wanted to make it available to others. I was able to come up with a way to do it that was 90% less than anyone else out there by doing it remotely. And to your point, I also made it be more like how we consume, video today on TV. We're no longer,
Mm-hmm.
we don't go to the movies as much anymore. We watch episodic TV, Netflix, Hulu, etc. And so it's like that. So if you want to just hear one story that your mom had to share, you could just listen to that 5 or 10 minute story. Or if you want to binge and hear all of her stories again, you can do that. And it's to your point. And I hadn't really thought about it, but not only is it a benefit to you and your brother and your kids and your grandkids, but your mom can actually watch that and it will trigger in her
Yes.
memories that
Joy.
she's
It's
starting to
triggering
disconnect from.
joy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as you're talking, I'm trying to think of the theme here of what it's done. And I think the word is forgiveness. When you understand, because like I've heard my mom tell the stories, but when I heard it again just recently, her say that her parents gave her up when she was 6 weeks old, it changed my complete perspective around anything and everything. And forgiveness is really at the heart of everything. And by the way, when you're trying to be an entrepreneur and run a business and you still have resentments and you still have limiting beliefs and you still have patterns that all come from your ancestry and you don't really have that deep understanding, you're going to repeat patterns that are holding you back. And so I didn't even think of this till just now, but that the heirloom videos gave me a ton of that, that it's probably going to help me, you know, pursue and just push through and feel lighter and better. And it's just done so much. I can't even tell you how impactful it's been. And again, I've told you like little pieces, but every day it's been playing a bigger role. So my point is, if you are listening to this and you're like, oh, I should do that, do it. Do it now. Do not wait. We have no idea what is around the corner, and it is a really really powerful, impactful thing in more ways than I can even express. Really really good stuff, David. So
Yeah,
glad
no,
that you
thanks.
did that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that you took advantage of it and we did it when we did it. And my word is, and you said it a little bit in your answer, mine's less about forgiveness, it's more about understanding.
Yeah.
Because we think we know our parents and we know why they do the things they do, and that we come up with our own narrative, and we might have heard that story when we were 12 years old or 7 years old or 22 years old. But when you hear that story later on in life and you've been a parent or you become a grandparent and you hear their story and you almost hear it for the first time, you're like, oh,
Yes.
now I get it. Like I've been giving them a hard time when, like, why was I giving them a hard time? Like, that's amazing that they were able
See,
to
but
get
that's
through that
forgiveness.
on their
That's
own. Well,
forgiveness, David. That is
yes,
forgiveness.
that is true. That is
I
true.
I really feel that forgiveness is the root of love in so
Mm.
many ways. And that takes deep, deep understanding, it takes having a different perspective. And so listening to the stories completely changes your perspective. And then you do have a deeper level of understanding and you kind of soften up. I think we become a little judgmental when we become parents. Like, what the fuck? Where is my mom? And
Well,
where is
but
my dad?
and we do that everywhere. I mean, we were talking
Yes.
about business before. We do the same thing in business. We think we
Yes.
know the person on the other side of the phone or on a Zoom call, or at a networking event. We don't know the journey that someone's been on. So you
No.
have to have a little grace and not, we come, I did the forum, like Landmarks Forum, we all come up with a story. We're given facts and then we wrap it around the story
Yes.
we want to give it. And we have to be careful about the stories that we're telling ourselves about things that either happen in our personal lives or as you learn in the legacy videos or in business that maybe you're looking at this the wrong way.
So true. I'll just add one thing and then we'll wrap it up with all the good stuff you want to share regarding your business. I think I forgot. Oh no. This is why part of the process, and we've been going through this process of really getting to the emotional why of why your clients want to hire you, why they want to get the results or solve the problems or this, not their surface answer why, but helping them to dig deep and to attach to it. But when you are emotionally attached to what they are looking for, your perspective is completely changed. It's completely changed, and that's where it becomes life altering. And that's where, because clients are like, well, what do you mean the greater good? Well, when you really do understand what it means for them, what success looks like for them, and how it impacts their life, and how it impacts, the business, and then all the people within their business, it just takes things to a much deeper level. Great conversation,
Always, Jen.
always. All right, so how do we get in touch with you? How do we do video? How do we do the legacy? How do we do all of it? Tell us.
Wow. A couple things you can do. I do have a web page called davidvogeledit.com, DavidVogeledit.com, where it's kind of, you can get all the information you want. My social media platforms, you can see anything and everything around all my businesses, example of our work. Obviously, there's the Remote Video Testimonials.com website. Any business, if you're a business, and I didn't realize this at first because I thought I knew it all when I started my first business, that the business owner is the best salesman. Wrong,
Mm,
wrong, wrong, wrong. Your happy clients are your best salespeople. That's why most of your business is based on referrals. So if you have a business, even if you're starting a business, one of the first things you want to get, maybe even before a website, are video testimonials, because they're going to help close deals. I've seen it time and time again. You don't need to have the website. All you need is someone telling a great story about what you do and let them close the deals for you. I love that for businesses. It's one of my favorite videos, and I've been doing video for businesses for almost 15 years. I've never seen something work as well, as fast, in so many different ways. So if you don't have video testimonials in your business and you're looking to grow, give me a call on that. And if you have parents, grandparents, if you're now the oldest one in your family, you should be telling the stories. You are the storyteller of your family. So it doesn't mean if your parents have passed already, you are now the one
mhm.
who has to tell their stories and your grandparents' stories and your aunt uncle's stories. You are the connection to the past that your children don't know and that future generations don't know. And as Jen eloquently shared, you're not just doing it for them, you're doing it for yourself as well. You will
Mhm.
have greater insight to how you were raised and better appreciation for your parents, better appreciation for yourself. It is truly remarkable what comes from this work. And Vidians, well, if you're a financial advisor, a financial advisor who wants to take their business to the next level, we turn their happy clients into a 24/7 referral engine for their business and take them to whole new levels. So, or
Love
if
it.
you don't have the information, hit up Jen. She'll tell you how to get a hold of me.
And all his links will be wherever you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, rather, and watching. However, I will give a quick testimonial. So I am also a client of David for Remote Video Testimonials. Uh, David was my first professional remote video testimonial, and so no, I haven't had someone call and be like, I saw this, and I want to hire you. But since I have launched testimonials which is yours. I did, the video, the reels, and it's inspired me to really be on the lookout for positive feedback from my clients and sharing it. Um, I can feel the shift. I can feel the energy. I feel, I have 3 deep dive. I've never had 3 deep dive calls, which is my sales call basically, this week alone. And so uh, these kind of results aren't always immediate, but I can feel the shift. I can see the uptick in inquiries and interest, and it's really really powerful. So powerful that it's only a few weeks later. I've already sent, okay, here's another one I want, and I already have 2 more that I'm just waiting for the exact moment. But it's super powerful. What you do is really really important and really great work. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being here with us and sharing your journey with us. And everybody, please check out David's stuff and do yourself a favor and tell your story.
If you would like to take a deeper dive on any of the topics we discussed today, or you're just looking to tap into that highest and best version of yourself and take your personal life and your career to the ultimate level, beyond limits, schedule a free deep dive call at jennifermar.com/schedule. You can also check out all of our workshops and offerings and events at jennifermar.com/events. Thank you for joining.